차렷 경례. Hey guys, today here I'm with Peter Psotny. He's the owner and managing broker of Colorado Home Sales Incorporated Metro Brokers. He and I will go through your class today. This class will cover your very first buyer. You just got somebody. What do I do now, Pete? What do I do now, John? So here's what you need to do. So if you look at the screen, the software is called CTME Contracts. You see there right on the top. And then once you could do 30-day free trial with CTME if you want to save money early on. But just, I would say if you're in this game, let's go ahead and fully get set up with CTME. So get your login password right here. Let's log in. So once you log in, you got this first page here, and this is all my clients now. But anyway, yours will be pretty much blank, but you want to come up to this section that says create new contract and click on that create new contract. And that will just give you, okay, what are you trying to create? So you're working with your first buyer. So let's go ahead and get the parent contract, which is exclusive right to buy contract, which is the fourth one right there. We'll click on that one. And then again, click create selected contracts. So that'll take you. Okay, Pete, why don't you help us with this? So let's go through real quick. Typically, our agents will do buyer agency. How about you guys?
Well, John, typically I want my agents to be in buyer agency as well.
Okay.
Transaction broker is going to be very rare unless you have both sides of the transaction. And
Okay.
especially being a newer agent, you're going to be looking out for your client's best interest most likely.
Sure.
John, do you think we should probably go over the definitions of working relationship?
We're going to go do that, but because of CTME, you have to have a parent contract. So we're going to start with exclusive right to buy listing contract, and then we'll do the definition page.
Should we start over since I just said that?
That's okay. Don't worry. This is for our associates only, pretty much. So number 2, multiple person firm or one person firm. Our associates are working for multiple person firms. So this is usually the choice we always do. Okay, buyer. Okay, let's go here. I'm going to put you're my buyer today.
All right, thanks, John.
Okay,
I'm excited. What are we buying?
I love to represent you. So I usually do that, so it will update the CTME with Peter's name, Peter Psotny. So that's kind of usually what I do. And once you set up with CTME, all this 3.2, 3.3 should all be filled out for you. So what do we do in 3.4? Okay, so what is Pete trying to buy today? Maybe let's say single.
Let's look for a single family home in Wash Park, John.
Okay, family. Oh, geez,
always wanted to live by there.
Single family in Washington Park around, I would say, let's say $1 million. How's that? So you could do this, guys. So also you could say single family home in Highlands Ranch, price between 300 to 400. You don't have to have an exact thing here, but it just kind of describes what you're helping your client with here on the property. So listing period, we'll just jump down here. Because usually I don't have my associates do leases for me. I don't know if that's true for your associates, Pete, but usually I'll just go right to 3.6.
Yeah, you're right. Majority of the time, we're just there to sell the property. We do run into that every once in a while since we have a property management company. So if you were in a position where your client is asking you to just sell the property and or lease it, you would want to mark box 3.5.2
right here.
That should also be accompanied with an exclusive right to lease contract as well as a management agreement as well.
Perfect. So, okay, but we're just going to consider this buyer, Peter, is just buying a house with us, not leasing. So I usually like to get them for a minimum of 3 months. I don't know about you. 3 to 6 months is kind of a listing period. What do you do? What do you like for your associates?
John, I typically do either 3 months or up to 6 months. A lot of my investors are going to be property specific, and if they're property specific on their agency, then it is just a 3-month agreement typically. But yeah, 3 to 6 months.
Okay, since you're my friend, I'm going to keep you for the entire year. So I did it all the way through there. So other ones are pretty simple stuff. Let's just go right to 3.8.2. I always do will because sometimes I forget such a deadline is on holiday. So this automatically pushes that deadline to the next day that is not on the weekend. So I always do this one. And then let's go down to 4.3.1.2. Okay, are we just doing buy agency only, or can I also be a transaction broker? I think, Pete, why don't you explain the difference here?
Well, in the event that you take, let's say you grab a great listing and you want to bring your buyer over by that listing, if you are marked as 4.3.1.2, you have to let that buyer know that you're going to have to change their agency relationship to a transaction brokerage. So if you are marking that box, you are limiting that buyer from effectively purchasing any of your listings unless you amend your agency agreement. So I typically leave that blank. I always tell a buyer that there
Okay.
is a change of status form that I'll have them sign in the event that they want to purchase one of my own listings, because it is difficult to be neutral in a transaction.
Okay, so for our purposes, for our associates, we're going to leave that blank so that they have a choice to go from buyer agency to transaction broker. But when you looked at the top here, we've already marked buyer agency on top, so that all already defaults you into a buyer agency agreement. So we'll leave that one blank so that you have an option to go either buyer agent or transaction broker, depending on the case. So of course, I mean, you learn all the broker duties and all this, you learned it in school. So we're not going to go over this right now. I don't think that's important at this time. It is important, obviously, for all the reasons, but just to fill out the form is kind of what we're trying to target today. So let's go to 7.1.1, success fee. A fee equal to how much could I get paid? Do you put 2.8 here, or do you do
I actually
2.8
put
to,
3%.
oh, okay, you put
And then I
3%.
put no less than, and then I put 2.5% on the second bar.
Okay, so
That's what I
3%,
typically do.
uh, but no less than 2.8.
2.5%.
Oh, 2.5%.
Because there are, especially if you're shopping investment properties, a lot of co-ops are only offered at 2.5%,
Mm-hmm.
and it could be hard for your client to come up with the difference in cash.
Okay,
But that's
so
also the time where you need to have that conversation with
mm-hmm.
your buyer that maybe someone is only going to offer a 1% co-op agreement.
Yes.
And actually in section 7.3, we'll go over that.
Okay, good. So how about here? Do you do anything here on the second column? Do you have adjusted amount, anything like that?
I don't typically, John, do
Okay,
you?
so no, I typically don't do that either. Usually we don't do hourly fees, so that's always NA for me here. Retainer
Yeah,
fee
none of
as
my
well.
brokers are going to
Yeah,
take any type of retainer or hourly
yeah.
fees. We just have a success fee.
Mm-hmm.
Once you performed on a transaction, we get paid. If we don't sell it, we don't get paid.
Right. So for me, that's all NA. And again, I don't do, my associates don't do leases pretty much. So these are all NAs. But for your associates, this may change depending on
If
if
you
you're
do have a
working.
lease
Mhm.
associated with this agency, I do want a separate agency for the lease agreement as well.
Okay, got you. All right. So let's go. This is all NA for us for now because Peter is buying that $1 million house. Yes, I'm gonna make some commission.
That leasing,
Okay. All right. So this is the part that will probably get you. What's this, John? What's this, Pete? So which box do you usually go with right here?
so I coach all of my associates to mark box 7.3.1.
Got you.
Ultimately, I don't know, John, you?
You know, it depends on the case by case for me. If it's somebody that I've worked with for a long time or my associates have worked for a long time, past clients, we may even mark this one. Just say, you know what, under no circumstances would you as a buyer be obligated to pay. You know, so that makes you look a little bit stronger as a broker in a way. But I agree, if it's a stranger, I would go with, you know, if somebody, this is somebody from Zillow leads or other leads, I may go with this one.
So one of my strong points on marking box 7.3.1, because I actually do work with a lot of investors, John,
Yes.
which means that we're buying properties that are off market. properties that might not actually offer a co-op. In fact, oftentimes when we perform on these assets, no co-ops are offered. So if I'm marking box 7.3.3, if there's no co-op offered, unfortunately, I get to do the transaction for free. And in
Right.
my firm, if you do have that marked and you are in that position, you are doing that transaction for free.
Mm-hmm.
But many times I have to have that conversation with my investors and say, you know, if a co-op is not offered, I do work at 2.5%, but we're going to find you a heck of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we've gone to the off-market transactions. And in that case, I have to set that expectation up front. I typically do that with my success fee. And then when I get down to section 7.3.3, I have that conversation with them, or sorry, 7.3.1, I'm having that conversation that in certain instances, I might not get paid a full commission. And then I need to either get compensated by you
Mm-hmm.
and or negotiate
Mm-hmm.
it into the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
If that box is marked 7.3.1,
Mm-hmm.
your commission does financially impact your client.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it is appropriate time to actually negotiate that commission into the sales price of the home.
Mm-hmm.
If you are marked in 7.3.3, that is not appropriate for you to do so because
Mm-hmm.
your commission is not financially impacting that client. It's
Right.
financially impacting you. And the
That's right.
contract to buy and sell is between a buyer and a seller, not between your commission check.
So I think that's the reason why that first box is there on as a first box, because that's the box normally people would probably check. So I would agree with you on that. But again, under maybe certain clients that you know really well, 7.3.2 or 7.3.3 might be an option. So let's go down to the next one, 7.4 holdover period. Do you do this? I usually do NA, but I know some brokers do 7 calendar days or 14 days, depending on the situation, or even 30 days. What do you do here?
Actually, John, I coach 90 days and I feel good.
Wow, that's great. Okay. 90 days holdover period. Yeah, because you're working with a lot of investors. You want to make sure that you're
And one of the reasons why I do that, John, is
mhm,
not to be a stickler, but you brought up a big point. Is I am working with a lot of investors. It's not unusual for my investors to be working with multiple brokers, and that's
mm,
okay too. In
mhm,
fact, as you find in your real estate career, as you move up the ladder and you have more sophisticated buyers,
mhm,
oftentimes they're in multiple brokerage relationships because they're
right.
doing different things, and you might specialize in one whereas they
Mhm,
don't in another.
mhm,
However, I want to make sure that the transactions that I'm working with, that I am protected in those transactions, and that's why I do
mhm,
indicate a holdover period. And I always
right.
give my clients a list of properties that
Mhm,
are associated with that.
mhm,
Then in 7.4, you
mhm.
would mark the box
Yeah.
will.
Yes. Perfect. There's nothing wrong with this at all, even with the regular buyers. So let's jump to the next column. So here, buyer is working with another broker, then you had to mark is, right? If that buyer tells you, no, you're my only broker, this is an exclusive right, then you'll mark this one. So depending on the situation, right?
Yes, and again, majority of your homeowner occupants are not going to be in multiple brokerage relationships. That only becomes the case in a more sophisticated buyer when you're working on
Mm-hmm.
multiple deals like investments and developments and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, typically is not.
Okay.
And if they were in a relationship, it's appropriate for us to ask the question is,
Mm-hmm.
have you been provided a list of properties that might
Yes.
impact you in a holdover clause of what we just reviewed earlier?
Yep.
And
So
that's where the
that's
has or has not comes into play.
so there you go. But if they have uh, looked at another property with another broker and they were very close to getting that deal done, they may submit this list to you so that you're fully aware of that situation, or you need to talk with your buyer about that. All right. So this is kind of new. Number 10, right to cancel for the buyer. Also, our right to cancel. So if you want to read that, that's fine. Let's see. Let's go to 12.1. What do you do here?
Well, I think in the buyer's agency, it's fairly simple and straightforward. I actually have saved it into the clauses section over there on the right-hand
Mm-hmm.
side.
Right.
So in efforts of not having to retype these things in
Mm-hmm.
multiple cases, it's always nice to input
Mhm.
a couple of clauses since they are going to be very similar in a majority of the contracts.
Mhm.
In the case of me being a buyer in Washington Park, I'm going to likely set showings and show properties.
Mhm.
I'm going to provide any Colorado Commission approved contracts.
Mhm.
I'm going to facilitate an inspection, and I'm going to facilitate title and facilitate a closing. That's
Mhm.
typically what I'm putting in there. John, what about you?
You know, I actually leave it blank. Most of my clients are referrals and past clients, so it's easier for me. But anyway, so yeah, I like that. So you could list what you do, you know, what searches you're working with, additional stuff you're performing for your buyer, so that they know what you're doing, the extra work you're doing. So I like that. So Pete already has clauses, so you just click on this, and his automatic clause will come up for you guys. That's working for Pete. So let's go limitation. So usually none or no limitation here, right?
Yeah, I very
Okay.
seldomly have any limitations. I guess the only limitation that you do run into from time to time is, and we're going to start seeing more of those, but is HUD foreclosures.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to renew your NAID number
Mm-hmm.
fairly regularly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds good. So maybe here is probably RE Colorado, but sometimes it could be PPAR if you're working down in Colorado Springs or other Colorado.com or other MLSs if you want to list them here, that's fine. Um, Usually we do have their permission, so we'll go with that one, right? Let's see, what else do they need to fill out? Do you have anything for additional provisions, attachments?
Attachments, right now, I'm attaching the COVID addendum to the buyer to the agency.
Yeah, so car. So are you using the car, Colorado Association of Realtor car COVID-19?
Yeah, actually, there is a COVID addendum in CTM
Right,
now
right. Hmm.
when you create contracts towards the bottom.
Unfortunately, it doesn't make it automatic for your clients to sign, which is
Yes, you have to upload it through Docs Management.
right. Yeah. So anyway, so you will put that in here for your people. So we'll leave it at that. Um, Anything for this box, 23.2.
I actually type in the contracts program in there, CTME contracts.
So I usually just do internet to save time. So
it's
yeah,
it's close to the same point.
yes. So if you want to do it that way too, or if you're my group, you could just do internet. Nice.
Although if you go up
Uh-huh.
to Boulder and write an offer and you put CTME contracts in there, they're gonna yell at you and tell you need DocuSign.
Okay, or dot loop, or one of the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so mine is automatically set for enable for signatures. I don't do initials anymore. What's your preference?
I prefer to just do signatures. I don't do initials
Okay.
very often.
So here, usually all I do for the email is I just put the client's email address, and that's all I put in here. Do you do actual address for your clients or not, or any other stuff here? Do you need to fill this out?
No, I actually choose not to populate that because it
Mm-hmm.
does become part of the contact sheet and it
Mm-hmm.
does give the other side of the transaction
Mm-hmm.
your client's contact information. So I leave that blank.
Yes, so that's what I do. So we're almost done here. And what do you do? The very last thing is you save it. Okay, so you hit the
Don't
save.
forget to do that.
Yeah, so you're done here, guys. That wasn't too painful. So that was your first ever contract. So now we'll go back here. We'll go back a screen. Okay, and another one. I think I'm gonna actually get this one out. So we're back here. Once you X out that screen, it will go back to the original CTME contract tab that shows now you've done this. So that's already saved. So you could email this to your clients, but before you do, as Pete mentioned, there's another form you have to do. So you go here and create new contract for this property. And let's go to the definition page. So right there, so under disclosures, you're going to mark this one, definitions of working relationship, create selected contracts. And this is what you fill out. Of course, you want to explain this, seller's agent, buyer agent, transaction broker, customer. You want to fully explain that. Should we cover this a little bit for our new associates?
Yeah, I think it's important.
Okay.
The first one's pretty self-explanatory, seller's agency. You do need to go through the fact that you're going to be representing that seller's best interest.
Mm-hmm.
You can sell a property in a transaction brokerage relationship, but typically I'm looking out for my client's interests. I'm going to be giving my client advice on the contracts that are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, if you're in a transaction brokerage relationship, you should not be doing any of that. You're simply there for the transaction. So you'd be receiving offers and just passing them off.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good time to really sell your value when
Mm-hmm.
you're presenting this definitions of working relationships worksheet.
Mm-hmm. So,
Buyer's agency is in a very similar status. When I'm walking
right.
a home, I'm not just opening the front door and telling you to walk through it and that's the last I talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be discussing the different features of a home between the 1940s to the 60s to the 90s to the modern day construction.
Mm-hmm.
And just those little actions in itself has me already in a buyer's agency relationship. The only time I would ever encourage any of my clients to do a transaction brokerage relationship is if for some reason you're representing both buyer and seller in the same transaction. And I'm actually a firm believer of when I do negotiate in a transaction brokerage relationship, at any time that I have a conversation about the property or the negotiation of contract, I have both parties present in front of me. Therefore, I can't favor one party over the other. And that's extremely important when you are in a transaction brokerage relationship.
It's so hard to write
That's a
stuff in
very
my
important
mouse.
form, especially if you're, especially if you are doing like an open house or
Uh-huh.
something to that reference, and somebody walks in and says that they don't want your representation, but yet they want to buy your home and they have no representation. You have to make it very clear that you're representing them as a customer. And I've actually been known to take out this definitions of a working relationship, circle the word customer, sign it on the bottom, and hand it over to them, so that I've made it very clear that they are only a customer. In property management as well, you need to treat your tenants as customers, and you need to be disclosing that through a definitions of a working relationship through tenant.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I really have on this form. Do you have anything to add, John?
No, let's fill it out. So I'm gonna make you sign this. I have a new client today. This is awesome.
That's right. $1 million buyer, John.
Damn. Yeah, you have cash?
I'm not going to make it that easy on you.
Okay. Hey, so before we let you guys go, this is our first video within many series of videos for our associates. We love you guys, right, Pete? We love our new associates. We want you
Yes,
to
thank
do
you, John.
well.
We certainly do love our new associates, and we
Yeah,
hope that they're going to be very successful. Thank you.
yeah. But any form you do, send out to your clients. I kind of try to tell them, hey, we're not attorneys. I mean, we have a limited function as a limited attorney to fill out these blanks and stuff, but we're really not attorneys. So if you are really have a lot of legal questions, you should talk to your attorney or your CPA, depending on your financial situation. How about you? Do you mention that to your clients?
I do. I actually, if you don't mind jumping back into the buyer's agency for me, John.
Sure. Let's go back. Okay. All right.
And we kind of skipped over the section there. So I do have that conversation with my clients. A lot of my clients might be in 1031 exchange situations.
Right.
Very important that they're communicating with their CPAs. But if you scroll down towards the bottom of the agency,
Yeah, I think
around
are you
Megan's Law,
oh, you're going to go to Megan's Law. So I thought you're going
just
to
underneath it.
I thought you were going to talk about this part, but anyway, so let's go
Yes,
ahead.
that is one section that it has it. That's not typically when I cover it personally.
Okay. So let's go
But
to let me go to Megan's Law, which is all the way, I think I just saw it, 28. Yeah,
right
20. Yep.
before Megan's Law, section 23.4, choice of law.
Got you right here.
And
Okay.
let's see. Scroll up just a little bit further, John. Honestly, I cover it right there on the choice of
Oh,
law.
18. Oh,
Oh,
you're talking about
section,
18?
there it is.
There we go.
That's what I was looking for, John.
Mm-hmm.
Section 18.
Mm-hmm.
I do definitely touch on that every
Mm-hmm.
single time I present it. I
Mm-hmm.
make it very clear I'm not an attorney. I make it very clear I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
CPA.
Right.
And then I even joke and I say I might know the answers, but you can't take any credibility from that.
Yeah.
And most of my clients that are in positions where they need that legal counsel or tax counsel have that. So
Yes. Yes. All right, perfect. I think we're done here. So it looks intimidating, but it really isn't. I mean, this is very simple. So we're gonna stop here, and thank you for staying with us. Next class, we're gonna jump right into contracts to buy and sell real estate. So join
thank you,
us for
John.
that. So I always end with 차렷, 경례,